Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
And we hope you're having a good day today. Hi, my name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and I'm here with Matthew from the nursing department. He is a nursing student, male nursing student, and we're from the Department of Nursing here at Nassau Community College. And our special guest today is Marc Atheim, and he is the owner and the instructor at No Yoga, No Bliss Yoga Studio in Manhasset. The studio just opened up this fall, and the studio focus is on traditional yoga with a strong emphasis on alignment and Vinyasa. Meditation is also going to be offered in the near future. The studio offers a men's Monday yoga class to encourage men to try yoga. And welcome to the show, Marc.
Thank you for having me.
And also welcome our nursing student, Matthew.
Hey, thank you for having me too.
So we thought that it would be ideal to have the male perspective with our nursing student today because we are talking about male yoga. So tell me first, Marc, what attracted you to yoga?
I was attracted to yoga because I'm very athletic, been athletic my whole life, and was always very tight and inflexible. And that inflexibility eventually caused me to not be able to tie my ski boots when I went skiing. So it was kind of a siren call to me to figure out what I need to do to get a little more flexible, and yoga was a logical option for me to try. Albeit, I did not know much about yoga and actually was very resistant to trying yoga at first.
So, Marc, when you started practicing yoga, is it what you expected it to be when you started the first time?
Absolutely not. I think that if you haven't done yoga, first of all, it's done on a mat, which is kind of unusual. And then there's a bunch of props like blocks and straps and blankets. And the environment is welcoming. And it also includes a spiritual aspect where there's some quiet time and there's some emphasis on breathing. So it was much more of a rounded thing than I expected. And I expected to be more physical, specifically physical. And I did not encounter that the first time.
So the first time you went to a yoga class, Marc, did you go by yourself or did you go with a female, or who did you go with the first time you experienced
I went
yoga?
with my favorite female, my wife.
Your wife.
And she is a yogi of yogis.
Yoga of
but
yogis.
Notwithstanding that, I never tried it. So she's been practicing 20 years. I've been practicing 10 years. So I recall probably the first class I went with her, maybe the second class without her. But what I think is important to note is probably if there was one other man in that yoga class, it would be a lot. So generally speaking, I was there as the only man in the class, and the teacher was not a man.
So why do you think that women primarily go to yoga classes? What do you think it is about yoga that pulls more of the females than the men?
Well, Jeanine, you know and I know that women are smarter than men. Okay, so that's first of all, right? So that's a given.
That's a good answer.
And I believe that women are more inclined to be open to things that may be a little bit out of the box, and men are more inclined to, just lift weights, press squats. Macho-ism comes into the picture. So I can't speak for a woman, though, because I don't know exactly why it would be to them. But my emphasis would be that they're smarter and more open to spiritual things.
So you said you were having trouble strapping up your boots when you skied. That's what really started off with yoga. What else was your flexibility like when you started out before practicing?
So I'm an athlete. I ski. I play hoops. I play tennis. I play beach tennis. I play a lot of different sports. And it's always been a hallmark of mine, my inflexibility. And I pretty much discarded any emphasis on stretching. I didn't really believe in it. And I just was totally inflexible. So I was totally challenged and needed to figure out a way to get flexible.
Yeah.
So what drew you into yoga? Was it because of the spiritual aspects of it, or that you were able to be more flexible with yoga?
Anthony Robbins says that we only do things, and he's the guru, one of the personal growth gurus. You only do something when your back is against the wall so much. My back was so against the wall, I realized I could not continue skiing if I didn't do something. So that was the impetus for me getting involved in yoga.
So it helped your flexibility.
So at the beginning, it's almost as if a person who's inflexible, who says they shouldn't do yoga, is like a diabetic who says he shouldn't go on a diet or take his insulin. It's so contrary to what people say. If I encourage a person to do yoga, they say, I'm so inflexible.
Right.
And that's the exact reason you want to do yoga. All of us are on a spectrum. We're all at one specific mark on a point of the universe, and each of us will have our own gradations, and we will start at one point, and if you continue with yoga, you'll improve. And now I could, put my palms underneath my feet because I've been studying yoga so much. I've been pretty vigorous in my study of it, and I'm very flexible. So what does that mean? It means when I play sports now, I'm much more loose on the court, and most importantly, after the sport is played, I feel like I just feel fresh. You don't have that after kind of hangover. You play hoops for 2 hours and you're not doing stretching, you feel it the next day. The next day your back's hurting, you try to get in your car. I have none of that anymore. Zero.
So this form of yoga, the Vinyasa, tell me about that. Is that a particular form what is specific about that particular form of yoga?
So at my studio, which is called No Yoga, No Bliss, KNOW, No Yoga, No Bliss, which has a double meaning, right? If you don't do yoga, you don't have bliss. I don't want to suggest that. But if you know yoga and you do yoga, you will have some moments of bliss. So the Vinyasa class is a series of movements that are connected to each other, and you go from one to the other to the other to the other, and it's in a flow. They call it a yoga flow. So vinyasa is a very helpful. Also, there's some aerobic aspects to a vinyasa flow. So a typical yoga class is an hour, and if we flow a half hour of that hour, that's a good thing. So you're really working your heartbeat, and the yoga class has a kind of like it has a slow at the beginning, and then you reach a peak towards the middle of a class, and then you kind of warm down to reach a point where you have some tranquility at the end of a class. So vinyasa is something that we practice at our studio, and when there's also an emphasis on alignment, meaning that we want to align our bodies. You guys are nurses, right? Your spine. The spine is a critical element. So much of yoga is about aligning yourself in poses and in the spine, having your spine aligned properly.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And I'm Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and today our special guest is Marc Atheim. And he's here talking about men in yoga, no bliss. So I believe, Matt, you had a question for Marc.
Yeah, Marc, when you first started practicing yoga, where did you get your foundation when you really first started?
So my foundation was kind of twofold. There was a studio in Great Neck, New York, that had a lot of good classes for beginners. It's no longer open, unfortunately. That was called Bandha Yoga. And also I was also fortunate. I had a private instructor once a week, a woman named Tina Conroy, who was my guru. And she would study with me an hour, say 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. She would come to my house and teach me the vocabulary and the poses. So it was fortunate for me to be able to study with someone like that at the beginning. And then I became a yoga, go anywhere yoga guy. Yeah. I would go anywhere.
So I know you're very physically in shape. I can tell just looking at you. Everybody can't see you at the listening audience. But if you had to compare yoga to another aerobic exercise, and I know you're a skier, what other exercises have you done aerobically? Can you compare yoga to?
I don't think it's aerobically comparable to really... Maybe dance. Okay. And it's not like a Zumba class. It's not Zumba. So almost in dance, when you dance, you have a certain, way you're moving, and ballet. So I would compare yoga, the vinyasa, to that type of sort of aerobic workout. I would say that I personally do stationary bike for 20 minutes a couple of times a week to do a more aerobic, traditional aerobic. So I would say yoga is not your go-to aerobic exercise, albeit they have Vinyasa has an aerobic element to it.
So it is a good workout.
You feel really wonderful after you do a yoga class, and that's for a variety of reasons.
Right.
One of which is the flowing of your body, but it's not a treadmill type of workout.
So would you say after yoga, in comparison to another aerobic exercise, that yoga gives you something additional that usual aerobic exercise would not?
Absolutely.
And tell me, what is that difference? What does yoga give you? That
at my yoga studio, there's so many different yogas out there now. Bikram is a style of yoga. There's an emphasis on hot yoga these days, where you do it in a hot environment. My studio is not about that. So when you leave our class, you leave with a certain tranquility and a peace of mind that is different than any type of exercise that I'm familiar with, Pilates or even anything else, where you're leaving there with a kind of a sense that you're decompressing, and that's because of the combination of the emphasis on breathing and inhaling and exhaling through your nose and not through your mouth, and also an emphasis on some meditation type things during a yoga class. And then the general forms that you take seem to release some muscles and some places where you generally would not get to in a typical exercise of your body.
So now I know you're going to be starting to offer yoga at the studio in the near future. How is meditation integrated into the yoga session?
So we are going to be introducing meditation to the already yoga programs that we have in a little while. The meditation aspect is definitely an offshoot of yoga, in that at the beginning of a yoga class at my studio and many traditional yoga studios, there's quiet time. You're asked to close your eyes. You're asked to emphasize looking inward and breathing in and breathing out, and try and get in touch with your breath and leave your cares behind outside of the room. Also, at the end of yoga class, there's a thing called Shavasana, where you actually lie down on your mat in what's called a corpse-like pose, and your eyes are closed. The music is playing very simple music, and it's also a meditative state. So these are things that lead to meditation. So I meditate twice a day. I practice transcendental meditation. I think one of your guests, Harry Martian, was on the show, and Harry is a wonderful man. I learned under him. So I meditate twice a day. So I think it's changed my life in many ways, so I want to add that as an element to yoga. They really go hand in hand.
So would you say that this what is
Transcendental
meditation, what does that mean for those that don't know?
So transcendental meditation is something that Maharishi brought over to this country many years ago, and it is a form of meditation that I practice. I could not teach transcendental meditation because you have to be certified in transcendental meditation. However, there's other meditations that are now kind of universal, about all these different emphasis on mindfulness, which is used in meditation. So meditation, transcendental meditation is something that your listeners could go look up. I'm not really qualified to discuss really everything about. All I know is I practice it twice a day, and it's great.
So this is a great time to take a break, and we're speaking about yoga, particularly men in yoga. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and I'm here with Mad Nursing students talking to our special guest, Marc Atheim, about No Yoga, No Bliss, Men in Yoga. And you're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Paralyzed veterans Sean Halstead and Noah Courier.
I was Air Force from 93 to 98. I got hurt practicing combat search and rescue, fell off a fast rope. So shattered L1 vertebrae. I don't know where I'd be without paralyzed veterans. I've only seen that now. Unite through struggle. That's what the Marine Corps and service is all about. You get tight and those bonds just get stronger and stronger the more you struggle together, and the harder the hardship. And I don't know if it gets any harder than being a quadriplegic. So, we instantly bond.
Paralyzed Veterans of America is a nonprofit, and it gets no federal funding.
And we provide every service free of charge to every veteran and caregiver that we support.
Paralyzed Veteran and PVA Executive Director Sherman Gillums Jr.
Every life, every success, every recovery, it's tied to the initial investment you've had in us.
To learn more, visit pva.org. A public service message from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
90.3 WHPC.
We now return to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
And welcome back to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Jeanine Cook-Garard, and I'm here with Matthew, the nursing student, who he likes to be coined to, right? That's his nickname, Matthew, the nursing student. He wants to be called, right, Matt?
That's right.
And today our special guest is Marc Atheim, and he's here talking to us about no yoga, no bliss, a male perspective with yoga. So tell me, Marc, you came up with this idea of men and yoga. How has the response been so far with men coming to the yoga class?
So the class is great. At 7 p.m. on Monday nights is Men's Monday Yoga.
Where is it, by the way?
It's in Manhasset on Plandome Road, just a couple of storefronts from Publicans, which is a pretty well-known watering hole in the Manhasset community. So the men's reaction has been actually outstanding. Many of the students are actually friends or acquaintances of mine who would never, ever, ever have tried yoga had there not been a class designated only for men. Because two reasons. One is that I believe men, in general, their egos are a little bit big, and if they can't do something very well, they're reluctant to do it. So if you're going to come to a yoga class, which you've never done before, and you're going to do it with 10 maybe women in the room and you're one of two men, you're going to feel very insecure about yourself. And it's really a major deterrent for actually men showing up to a yoga class. So that's one problem. The second problem is that men sometimes have a wandering eye. And if there's 10 young, middle, older, whatever age women in the room, they sometimes maybe not concentrating on what they should be concentrating on. So that was my double rationale for having men's yoga. And also, I'm a male teacher of yoga, which is generally unusual, especially in Nassau County. I could probably count on my hand. There's about 3 or 4 men that I know that teach yoga in that Nassau County area that I know of. Not saying I know all of them. So I think having a man teach men is very inviting.
So as a male, is there a certification that goes along with being a male yoga instructor as is with anyone else who's teaching yoga?
I do the same certification as the females. I was fortunate to get my training at Om Sweet Om in Port Washington, and I completed a 200-hour training, which took about 3-4 months. And yeah, it's the same for a man teacher as a woman teacher at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you encourage men to wear? When they go there, actually they're wearing comfortable clothes. I don't know, just regular sweats.
Actually, what's really unusual is they do it naked. No, so what they do is they wear a T-shirt, and you could wear regular shorts or you could wear sweatpants.
Okay.
To wear sweatpants is not necessarily the best thing. If they're tighter, they're better because you want to see what the knee is doing, and it's better for the teacher to see what the leg is doing. So shorts is probably best.
So with the loose-fitting clothing, like I've tried yoga a few times, and I felt that, which is great that you have the men's class on Monday nights at 7 p.m., because I know when I tried it I've been a handful of times, and I know for me it was especially uncomfortable the first few times going into that room, as you said. When it's dominated by women, I was the only male in the first 2 classes I went to. It is kind of it's a different experience, especially being an athlete and going into a setting that you're not comfortable with.
It's intimidating.
Yeah.
I think it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And to get guys to admit that they're intimidated is a whole nother thing. Yeah. And I guess the other thing that if we did have a sign on the door before you entered the studio, it would be check your ego.
Check your ego.
Because all of our bodies are made of different architecture. It's like an architect designed it, and none of us are the same. Some of our arms are longer. Some of our fingers are longer. Some of our legs are longer. Some of us have knee issues. What's really nice about yoga is that even if you're having some type of back issues and other things, we work through those problems. And it's really a very healing. I know you guys are nurses.
Yeah.
Yoga is a very healing practice. It heals your body and fortifies it at the same time. So
for the men that are coming to the class, is there a beginner's class and it kind of progresses to more of an advanced class, or is it come one, come all, and just do what you can kind of class? How do you have that broken up for men who wish to come to the yoga classes? Great question. So the men's class originally is for beginners, men who are beginner yogis, and therefore everyone is welcome. If someone is a more seasoned yogi, they will then have the experience of knowing that they could take their practice to a different level. So the short answer is it's open to anybody, and it's for beginners. However, my students who have been coming regularly the last 2 months, as they get more equipped to do something, it's a very give and take. I'm watching what they're doing. And also my studio, and not only, I'm trying to prepare these men to go to the other classes. Okay. That's what my goal is. It's not to be able to them stay in the men's class. I want to prepare them so they have the confidence, and many of them do now. If I polled my men now, I bet you that they would feel comfortable attending other classes at my studio. In fact, some do already. So the idea is to equip the men to not stay at my class, but to be able to do it wherever and whenever, and also to maybe do it at home. I try and emphasize that home practice should be thought of as something that everyone can do. So I'm trying to give them the tools to be able to do it at home and do it wherever they can. So this is not a class that you can bring your spouse if a male wants to bring his wife or daughter.
If his wife is not a male, he can. Which is obviously
so no women allowed in this class.
NWA, and I did get some resistance from some of the women in my studio saying, how could you do that? There's only 5 nights a week that you teach, and now you're going to dedicate an hour and 15 minutes to men only. I said, I appreciate your perspective, but this is one of my goals of the studio is to do this. And it's really great because some of the women who take yoga at my classes are telling their husbands to check out this guy's class. It's men only, honey. You don't have to worry. There'll be no other women there. Nobody's going to make fun of you, And it allows men to just be a little more relaxed. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And today our special guest is Marc Atheim, and he's talking about No Yoga, No Bliss, a male perspective on yoga and yoga classes that he's given in a studio in Manhasset. Is that right, Marc? It's in Manhasset, yes, right on Plandome Road. So how much does one have to pay to come to the yoga class? Is there insurance that covers it? Can they come fee for service? How does that work? Or you come and pay every day, every time you come? Or is there a package that I can purchase for it? Maybe if I want to give a gift to my husband, he can have that gift of Christmas, and I can buy this gift certificate for him to come. How does that work? Well, I haven't done the gift certificates yet. Oh, that's a good idea. Nice idea. Thank you very much, Doctor. So I have a very simple formula. I'm the owner of the studio and an instructor. I don't want to do a lot of administrative work, so it's very simple. Okay. It's $20 for a class, no packages, no monthly memberships, and it's really simple to pay for the class. You just go to noyoganobliss.com, you click on schedule, you click on book. They ask you for your credit card information once only, and then it's secure. And then you could come back and just book the classes online, $20. There's no administration. There's nobody at the front desk. You just come in, and that's it. So you don't pay at the door. You can kind of pay online. You can. Mm-hmm. If you have to. Okay. Pay $20 cash, exact change. Okay. There's no cash at the studio other than the money that we get. I'm trying to keep it really simple. So there are no age restrictions, because we do know of a lot of older men who may want to come just to become flexible because they feel have some arthritic changes in their joints, or maybe they just want to connect. This is probably a good social situation also to connect with another man.
is there any age criteria with this yoga class for men?
There is no age criteria for the class. In fact, I met a person in Manhasset yesterday, Abraham Bernstein, who is 82,
Wow.
and he is apparently the fastest track and field man over 80 in Nassau County. We can't believe he runs. He's going to try to come to my class. Mm-hmm. What's interesting, though, is that some of my teachers are embedded in the Manhasset community, and they have children who attend the high school, Manhasset High School. Mm. So, for example, tomorrow night, one of my teachers, Elizabeth, she will be hosting a class with 10 teenage boys who play lacrosse. The injuries, and this goes to nursing, the injuries are paramount in these high school sports. So having yoga, the kids realize that stretching and doing some of these other stuff is really good for them. So it's not a men's only class, but I am finding a real niche and a market in Manhasset. Particularly, it's a very athletic, very motivated populace where the teenagers are getting caught up with it. And I'm going to have a meeting with the Manhasset principal of the high school because I want to go to the high school. And I want to teach a class with 100 people in the room just to give them some exposure to what yoga is. So we're working on that, hopefully, with the high school after I meet them.
So that you're addressing a lot of sports injuries, I would imagine, with that population of individuals, particularly who are athletes and want to, when you talk about flexibility and stretching their muscles and knowing how to keep alignment and good anatomical alignment as they're going and engaging in these kind of sports activities, it becomes so important with yoga. Now, when you look at the future and you look at the goals for this particular type of class, what do you envision? Are you envisioning that you're going to give something to the community by having this for men in particular? Is there something that you wish to achieve by having just men, a men class?
By having the men's class, I'm trying to achieve the goal of a welcoming environment for the men, and that I am hoping that as the men be open to yoga more, that I can then kind of steer them into meditation, because my goal is, on a very short-term goal, is to make them feel better than they came in when they first came into the place, that they felt better when they came out. However, the longer-term goal is to, give them the tools to do yoga other places, and then to really try and emphasize that there's the meditation and living in the present, this mindfulness thing, which is certainly caught on, maybe a little too commercialized now, but is vital, and it's changed my life personally. I know what it's done for me, so I can only speak for what it did for me. It doesn't mean it's going to do it for another person, but I'm really very, very. It's important to me that someone could step out of the studio and get thinking about what else they could do to slow down their life.
Well, I think we're going to leave it right there. We really thank you for this very excellent idea for business. And we want you to know that we wish you the best for this launching of this business. So thank you. And thank you, our listening audience, for talking about no yoga, no bliss. And we want to thank our nursing student Matthew, for joining us and giving the male perspective. And we just want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the Nursing Department. Executive producer for this series is Jim Green. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.